Welcome back to episode 2 of the studio build. In this episode, we're going to be going from this to this. But firstly, we have a lot of stuff to do. And the first thing that we really need to get started with is cleaning up. Now, you can't really see it too well on camera, but this place is absolutely filthy. And it's not just dirt on the floors, there's also dirt in the walls. And if you saw in episode 1, there's so many cobwebs and bugs. But first things first, we need to get this thing out the wall. And as you can see, that's quite a bit of a hole. Same thing goes for this, we need to get this gone. There's so many different cables and miscellaneous things going through the walls that this is going to be quite a bit of effort to get sorted out. This is probably one of the best efforts I've ever seen. Great work. Now, during this process, I need to tell you all that I really have no idea what I'm doing. I am playing this by ear and just taking it day by day with this build. Everything you see in this video took place over 6 days, and that's mainly because I had to wait for different things to turn up in the mail, and there's all sorts of things that I had to fix and get professional opinion on, which you'll see very shortly. But I'm by no means a professional. I've never done anything like this before, and I am just playing everything by ear and doing it based on what I think is right rather than what necessarily is right to do. So in the last episode, you may have seen this beam going across the window that we didn't really know what it was for. And well, when actually trying to remove it from the window, it caused some problems. It felt a little bit like the roof was pulling down, and I was a bit confused about whether it was structural or not. And it put a bit of a downer on the whole project. In fact, during all of this filming, there was a couple of day period where I had to get a builder to come in and actually take a look at it. And we did find out that it is nothing to do with the window, it's nothing to do with the ceiling. It's actually probably where a partition wall used to be in this building, and rather than fitting a separate window, they just put a partition in the room. So there is actually nothing to worry about with this. So of course this will be getting removed. Now this cabinet needs to come out, and weirdly enough I unscrewed it all to realise it wasn't actually screwed into anything. The screw holes were completely rounded out. The top isn't even attached. What's holding the top in is actually the cupboard. Oh my god. And next we've just got to do a lot of cleaning, and I missed out pretty much all of the filming of the cleaning. You can see some little bits here, but there was a lot of mopping, a lot of cleaning, a lot of disinfecting, and then of course a lot of going through and filling in a lot of holes that were left in the walls by pulling out cables and stuff like that. Now the amount of spiders and bugs in here, but probably because of all the holes and gaps in the walls, and I spent a significant amount of time just filling in gaps and trying to make this place somewhat, I wouldn't say airtight, but bug proof. Also, throughout this build as well, the building got progressively less breezy. There was a lot of gaps in walls that I had to fill in because the room was, you could feel a breeze coming through even when doors were shut.
They say love is more precious than gold. It can't be bought and it can't be sold. I got love enough to spare. That makes me a millionaire. I got a woman with eyes that shine down deep as a diamond mine.
So I bought this paint, which on Amazon said it was a couple of litres. As you can see, it's quite clearly not a couple of litres. But for me anyway, this was a good experiment to see whether I'd actually be able to roller the walls. Now I originally planned on rolling all of this paint onto the walls thinking it would work. Now it was hit or miss, but it didn't work. There were so many pores in the walls that it led me to the point where I had to order a spray gun. Now I didn't want to spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds on a spray gun because well, I'm going to use it once. So I spent 30 quid on one from Amazon, and although it was a good decision, you'll see. So I've just laid some paint to see if it works on plastic, if it works on brick, and if it works on the ceiling. I've decided that I'm going to get a spray gun because this is just going to take too long to get in all of the pores. You can see I went over that, you probably saw in the video, I went over that probably like 20, 30, 40 times and it's not going into the pores. So I'm going to get myself a spray gun. So I removed this thing from the gap in the wall, so that's now gone. I need to fill that in with wood, but we'll do that in a different episode. Now, next I've got to mask off all these plug sockets. My goal with the spray gun is just to spray the room. I don't want to be having to get crafty with it. And an even bigger part of this prep process was actually removing overspray from the previous paint job that someone did in here. So with a lot of good paint jobs, all of the work is in that preparation. So I wanted to make sure I at least prepared the room correctly. I also wanted to spray around the lights, so I masked them off so I can give them like a black finish, and of course the windows as well. Now when it came to the paint gun, you'll see that this clip cuts just as it's about to get messy. Initially I just put the paint in here and it did pass the little viscosity test kit that I did, but you actually have to add quite a significant amount of water to this to make it run smoothly out of the gun. However, with water being added, it just means that you need multiple coats, and getting it perfect isn't easy. I'll be honest, it isn't easy, but we did get there. We did get there in the end. Now, as you can see, there's different options with this gun. You can either do a wide spray pattern or like a really small spray pattern. I went for the small one because I'm trying to blast into where all those holes are. Going for a wide one, it just means multiple coats. And just doing this one wall, and I didn't film the full thing because it took me 3 days to do the entire wall, because I had to do multiple coats anyway, even on a direct spray pattern. This was genuinely exhausting, and I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemies. And as you can see, when the paint job was done, it was actually still kind of patchy. I did go back over and just go over a couple of these patchy spots. To be honest, with the way the room looks at the end of the video, you don't really see it at all, but I'm making do with what I've got. Now, whilst I carry on painting, let me actually tell you a bit about this building. So when we got a builder in, they basically said that it's fine as a shed, but as an office, in terms of an insulated building, it's not the best, and it's not going to be a building that really stands the test of time. I'll probably get a couple of winters out of this. Now, to a lot of people, they probably wouldn't invest time or money into this project, and I can kind of understand that, especially with how much work it's been. But for me, this wasn't necessarily about building the office. I wanted to show myself and prove to myself that I could actually do it. I have a habit of overcommitting to things and never finishing them. So for me, this was me proving to myself that I could do something. Now I've added these wooden beams to the wall, which are to support something that's going on the wall, which you'll see later in the video. I needed to separate it out from the electrical conduit, so you'll see what that's for very shortly. Now at this point, I'd been painting for a few days and I haven't finished painting, but I'd done one side of the room, so I just wanted to get started on doing some other bits, just so, well, my ears were constantly ringing from the paint gun, and even wearing a mask I could smell and taste paint. So I thought I'd get started on some other little odd jobs by putting in this fake brickwork, which, by the way, actually looks quite good. I went through a few different samples of fake brick and they all look crap. Now on this wall here, I put some sound foam across the edge, and I'll explain that in a different video. Now next we're putting these boards up on the wall, and I need to cut some holes out for the plug sockets to protrude through. As you can see, that's one on the wall, and that's 2 on the wall, and there's 4 in total. It's not really that interesting. Now, if you want the cliff notes to this saga, these lights didn't work in this tube because the LEDs were too far apart. So I actually ended up ordering a different light strip and then using this light strip underneath the wooden slats, which you'll see later in the video anyway. This whole string pulling method didn't really work the way I wanted it to, so I ended up having to cut open that piping and then put LED strips through manually, which was fun. And here I'm mounting these brackets up on the ceiling for me to attach it to. Now at this point I got distracted and started adding sound deadening foam all over the place, and I actually did record a segment here, but to be honest it's all boring. So for me this gave me that little bit of motivation to finish painting the other side of the room. Once I'd actually seen the studio coming together, and yes, those boards aren't level, I did sort that out off camera in the end. But yeah, I just needed to do something different and give myself some more motivation to get the project done when you've been painting for days on end, and it's just ridiculous. The amount of coats of paint I did, it got to the point where it was just becoming tedious to get up in the morning, drive like 45 minutes to the studio to go and paint it, to come home after 6 hours or 3 hours, whatever I did that day. Yeah, it got rough. And on top of that, after doing all of that, I was putting out daily videos at this point on the whole Paradise game situation. So there were big projects to do whilst doing this. And the progress speeding up from this point onwards has purely been down to the fact that I haven't uploaded in a couple of days. And this room will be the next project to do, which you'll see in a later video. I'm still waiting for some bits to arrive for this, but I removed that desk out, and in that corner there's going to be some stuff, and you'll see. Now, as you can see with the lights here, these were the original lights that I put in, and you can see that the LEDs are too far apart from each other, so it looks a bit crap. Then the next day I came in and put this kind of slate effect against the wall. I might end up changing that for brick in the future, but to be honest, with the desk that's going to be there and some cable management stuff, you actually won't see that, and you'll see later in the video that that's not really that visible. And this is when I also changed the lights, and you'll see them a bit later in the video, and I put those lights underneath these wooden boards. I also put these lights up in the corner of the room. They actually look really nice, and then I also added these kind of sound panels onto the wall, which to be honest they also look really nice as well. So off camera I finished painting the other wall, didn't film it, obviously very boring, but then that brings us to the point of laying down the underlay and the carpet. Now the carpet I went for quite a cheap one because I went for a thicker underlay, and like I said earlier in the video, I don't want to be spending thousands and thousands and thousands more than I need to on a building that I don't really know how long it's going to last. So the carpet for me wasn't that important, and the only purpose it really had was to be something nice to stand on and to maybe help with some of the acoustics in the room. Now, I am debating doing a whole video on the acoustics of the room. I've still got to add so much more sound deadening to the room, and there's a lot of things happening with the room to help sound treat it. Prior to me being a YouTuber or me even editing for people in my previous career, the actual main qualification that I have is audio engineering, and I've done a lot of like sound treatment stuff in the past. So if you want a separate episode just purely on sound treatment, stuff like bass traps and room shape and how all of this stuff affects acoustics, please let me know. I'm not going to go 100% into acoustic treatment for the room. There is no point because I'm not recording drums or anything like that in there. I'm of course just recording voiceovers. Now, another topic that's come up quite a lot is the cost of all of this, and so far everything's been way more expensive than I thought it was going to be. Just for example, running electricity into this building, still got to sort that out. At the moment, if you plug in more than 3 things into the building, all the lights start flickering, and there's a few electrical issues that are to do with the mains coming in, so that's going to be sorted, but that's going to cost around £2,000 because of the sort of cable that's needed to provide the amperage for the building, because the building's so far away from the main power source. So there's a lot of things that I need to sort out. On top of that, just getting internet into the building, looked at Starlink, coverage was awful, so I'm gonna have to be doing something a bit more permanent with the internet. So I've gone for a full internet plan, a BT plan, which is nearly £100 a month for 1.6 gigabits per second. So all of this sort of stuff is compounded by the fact that this is in the middle of a field, which of course I should have thought about before, but it's all part and parcel of it. So yeah, so far this has costed me a lot more than it would cost anyone else to build the same thing in their garage, for example. So at the end of this series, I will do a cost breakdown, but it's going to be a lot more expensive than people think, and it doesn't need to be. Like, the most expensive part of all of this stuff would be labor, and I'm doing most of this myself. Other than the electrical work, I just don't have any qualifications or know-how on how to do that, which is why in the next episode you'll also see me fitting fire extinguishers. Hopefully you're enjoying this so far. Like, we've done all the basic stuff now. Now it's the stuff where we go into the electrical and office setup, which is going to be stuff like command center to run all my lighting rig. And this is where I get to firstly work with sponsors, but secondly talk about the stuff that I'm really, really excited about. So thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe. And I also need to say a massive thank you to all of you, because without all of your guys' support, there would not be any money at all for me to do this. And it is because of you guys watching my videos that I can afford to do this. And this, you know, it's weird to me that making videos about games has been able to afford me this. This has all happened in the past year. So I do appreciate it. I appreciate all the support you guys are giving me. Love you all. Thanks for watching.
Beginnings on the cusp, not too old to adjust. Old dog, new tricks. Remember, I was just a pup. Something dirty in my cup. Clean soul, good karma is a must. Still my shooter in the cut. I was stuck inside a rut. Played the game, made bank, move G. Anything to get a buck. You won't find me in the club. I'm in the